Welcome to the Holistic Kid Show.
My name is Abdullah.
We're the Holistic Kids here, as you can us kids from the inside out. My name is Zane.
My name is Abdullah.
And I'm Imad.
If you have been listening to our podcast over these 4 years, we are teaching you life skills that we don't learn at school, but are super important to live long, healthy, and happy in life. And one of the things that they really don't teach us all about.
Money. We need money to eat. We need money to buy clothes. We need money to live. But unfortunately, most kids don't learn almost anything about money. We live in a suburb of Chicago. I seriously think that my classmates don't think money grows on trees.
It doesn't. But well, I don't think that's the case because the expert here is talking about just that.
Mr. Garrett Gunderson. Garrett Gunderson is that how you spell your name? Pronounce it?
Yeah, you nailed it.
Perfect. Garrett Gunderson is an entrepreneur who became a multimillionaire by the age of 26. Garrett is an international speaker and coaches elite business owners in the financial service industry. His book, Killing Sacred Cows, was a New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestseller. We love his new children's book, I Am Money. This book is a must read for every kid. And we are so thankful for you to be here with us today. I mean, in 160 episodes, we have not had anybody, right, Zen?
Yes.
Nobody has taught us about this topic. So we are so incredibly honored for you to join us today.
It's good to be with you. I look forward to this.
Well, it's our pleasure.
It's our
Our
pleasure.
pleasure.
Nice. Well, where do you want to start?
So I think after listening to your bio, I know we are all wondering. We want to hear about your story. How did you become so rich at such a young age?
I started my first business when I was 15. It wasn't anything fancy. It was something that kind of was helped because of my parents. My dad was a coal miner, and when the bosses would come into town, they'd have to clean the surface vehicles, and he'd bring them home, and I'd help him. And he was going to give me this truck if I got good grades. It was an old 1976 Chevy pickup, and I decided I was going to make it look as good as possible. It had, sun damage and was oxidized and had some fading, and so I really kind of shined it up. He's like, "Hey, you're pretty good at this. Maybe when the bosses are in town, I can get you a contract to clean the vehicles." And my mom, she worked at a credit union, and when people weren't making payments on their cars, they would repossess the vehicles. And so I went to the president of that credit union and said, "What if I clean these vehicles? And then you'll be able to sell them for more." And so that was kind of my start. And I ended up going and presenting that business at these things called Students in Free Enterprise, which were these college kids putting on competitions for high schoolers. And I had only made like $700 total the first, year of business, because it was like a 7-month year because I started it in the summer. And I went and did this competition where I took third place and I won $500. Now I was scared to go up and talk. Like I had to present my business to these panel of judges, and I was so nervous. I was talking myself out like I shouldn't do this. And then I made them laugh, and I was like, oh, they kind of laughed. And I took third place, which was really good considering it was a new business. And I was just barely turned 16 years old after starting it at 15. And so I was like, this is cool. So the next year I went back and I won first place. And that came with $1,000 and put me into the state competition where I won $5,000. And I was like, oh, I want to invest that $5,000, but I didn't know where to invest. I didn't know what investing really meant. And so I was asking my family members, and, my family kind of put cash in coffee cans and put it in the cellar. They were really worried about losing their money and had been swindled in the past. So I was like, all right, well, that's not really the plan I want. And then when I finally turned 18, I started to put away $70 a month into this plan from all the money I made from my Garrett Gunderson's car care was my business. And I'd won some competitions, but I didn't know if that was the right thing to do. And so I decided to study finance in college. I had this amazing professor that he donated $250,000 to our class to invest. And when we took that investment, we had to say, we're going against this investment and we're going against our classmates. And that kind of determined your grade based upon how your investments did. So that was like real life world experience. And I just kept asking more questions and got offered an internship in the world of finance. So at 19 years old, I was thinking it was really cool to be in an internship, but they really just wanted me to sell, products to my family and friends. So it was more like learning about sales than finance initially. But early, I met these people that were like, hey, we learned in this system, and that system was really helpful. So I just like every month would fly to go learn because I wasn't married yet. I was in college, but I had this money from this business that I started, and I just immersed myself in the world of finance. So that was kind of my start. And then I don't know if you guys know, I eventually did a comedy special on Amazon making fun of things around money. So it's called The American Dream. And, I've written a whole bunch of books, including this children's book that you guys read, because I feel like entertainment is a good way to educate.
Wow, that's amazing.
Amazing.
So let's start with the basics. Why do you think that they don't teach us about money in school? Imad, have they ever taught you about money in school?
Only like a very tiny topic.
Like they teach us how to count money, and that's all.
Yeah, because money is confusing for most people, and I think teachers already have a lot on their plate. They have to teach math and science and all sorts of things. And I don't know how good teachers are with money. I don't know that that's really what their expertise is. So it's one thing about reading about money in a book. It's another thing to teach it. And a lot of people think that money is about budgeting and what you eliminate. But I believe that money is how do we add more value? How do we create more impact? How do we serve more people? How do we solve bigger problems? And then we grow our money because we grow ourselves. Some people get confused and think that money is about risking it and handing it over and hoping for the best, or locking their money away for a lot of years in retirement plans, or they get really confused about it. But money is just a man-made tool so that we can be more efficient with each other, right? Imagine back in the day when there wasn't money. You're like, what if you're a carpenter and you want to go out and you want a vehicle, but that person doesn't want carpentry? So you have to go find someone else that wants carpentry that can trade something of value, right? Like it was really hard. It was bartering. So money became a really efficient way for us to store money. Like just imagine you go do something for someone and money is them saying, I appreciate this, I value this, here you go. And you can say, great, I store that energy I just gave to someone so I could utilize someone else's energy. And if we don't have money, then a lot of that is hard to track. It's hard to understand. So it's just money's a man-made efficient tool to exchange with one another. And when I say exchange, I mean like when we serve someone or when we give them a good or an experience or a service, we could say, all right, I'm going to give you this money. You're going to give me that service. And here's the deal. This is really important to understand, is that wealth is built through unequal exchange. What I mean by unequal exchange is if I buy something from you, like say you guys bought that book, right? You guys bought that book. So let's say that book was $15, okay? The fact that I sold you that book through wherever you got it means that book is worth less than $15 to me. You want to know why it's less than $15?
Why?
I already know it. I wrote it. I have it in my head, so I already know what's in it. But hopefully you guys got the book and you're like, this is worth more than $15 because you learned something that you might be able to take in your life. So we don't go exchange equal things. Like if I had $1 and you guys had $1, is there any incentive for us to change dollars? I mean, it's just $1 for $1. That's equal exchange. Unequal exchanges, we can both win if I can do something really efficiently and provide that value for you so you can focus on what you do most efficiently, right? It's unequal exchange, which means both parties can end up wealthier. Is all that making sense?
Yeah.
Like I once went to buy this bike and I was going to do it. You guys know what triathlon is? Like where you just,
yes.
Oh yeah, triathlon, yeah.
You swim, and I just had like an old bike that, I got as a kid that wasn't going to be very good for this race. So I go and I look at like a road bike. It was $4,600. And I was like, oh my God, that's so expensive was my first thought. And then I thought, as I rode it, I was like, wow, this is really light. This is really fast. This is really smooth. I thought I could never create this bike, even if I dedicated my whole life to it, because the aerodynamics and all the research and engineering and materials. I don't know where to go get carbon fiber. Do you guys know where to dig up carbon fiber? I don't know.
Now I know what that is.
Yeah, exactly. It's like what it was built out of. So I then was like, wait, the fact that someone else can build this means I can go take my time and do something else that they're not as good at and bring that value to the world. And see, that exchange creates wealth the more we exchange with one another. So unfortunately, most people think the road to wealth is by eliminating, budgeting, scrimping, sacrificing, reducing. But wealth isn't about reducing. I mean, it's about growing. It's about producing. So like, how can I add more value in the world? The more value I add, the more money follows that value. So when people think that, you guys have ever heard people say like, oh, the billionaires have too much money and we need to tax them more. And you know what? Like it's unfair that person has more than this person. Well, the reality is they found a system or a way to impact more people or to more deeply impact people. Because if money follows value, then the people that create the most value are going to have the most money. Now, some teachers don't get paid a lot. It doesn't mean they don't create a lot of value. They're just creating a lot of value for a small number of people versus, someone that's maybe teaching online and has thousands of customers. They're probably going to get paid more than a teacher that has 30 students, right? Because they're reaching more people.
Yeah.
So, we don't learn about money in school because,
it's complicated.
It's like, it's just a snapshot in time. Mm-hmm. It's just a measure of the value that you've created or received, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't really dictate what you're capable of doing in the future, but it does represent what you've done so far. Yeah. Now, some people are lucky and they win the lottery. I don't know. Have you guys heard what happens to most people that win the lottery?
They use it all and then they have like nothing.
Yeah, they go to jail. They're broke. Yeah. Because everybody comes out and says, "Hey, are you paying for dinner? Hey, buy me this alligator," like whatever crazy thing, right? So that's not necessarily like, or maybe people marry into money, or maybe people, gamble and win. I mean, there's ways that we can get money without necessarily directly adding value through inheritance and through, gambling. But if we look at the majority and we look at the principles, money is just because we've added more value. And so the question is always, how can I be of value? How can I add even more value? How can I reach more people? How can I more deeply impact the people I reach? And realize, some people believe that money, there's only a finite amount of money, or there's only, if you ever heard this story of the finite pie, there's only so much pie to go around. So if I take too many slices, one of you guys aren't going to get a slice, right? That's the finite pie. But money doesn't, like, if I give you money, that's not the end of that money. You get to take and use it. And whoever you give it to gets to take and use it. So the more times it exchanges, the more times it's used, the more value is created. The more value is created, the more wealth we have. Like if we went back in a time machine to hundreds of years ago, we live so much wealthier in society today than hundreds of years ago. Like we can have music at our fingertips, right? And if you're willing to listen to an ad, it's probably free. Back then, you'd have to hire the musicians to come to your house. We could be anywhere in the world in a day with the transportation. That might take someone a lifetime back in those days. We have air conditioning and indoor plumbing. They didn't have that kind of stuff. So we actually have a lot more wealth now than we used to because people could build on previous ideas and we become more and more effective and efficient. Things become, more easily accessible. It used to be that well over half the population didn't really have enough food. Now there is still part of the population that doesn't have enough food, but that's drastically reduced because there's been exchange. And so one thing that people get confused is they think that money can solve problems. See, we spend in the United States more money on health than any other country by far, but we're not even in the top 40 healthiest countries. So that doesn't mean money can solve a problem. We could throw money at something and it's not the right thing or it's not adding value. So really, it's just that it's about adding value. That's the thing to remember here. And that the more we help other people and the more we exchange, the more everyone else can win.
So basically, like the value of money is not just, what's on the bill, but it's how you use it and what you do with it.
And how it can change
people's lives. Well said.
Yeah, like Imad said, how it can change other people's lives.
Yeah, and some people, there's these things called money personas. And there's 4 main personas when people are in scarcity. When someone's in scarcity, they think there's not enough. They think that fear and doubt and worry are the only way of the world, and they get caught up in all the negativity without seeing anything positive. And when they think there's not enough to go around, they try to hold on to what they got. That's called a miser. A miser plays a game called preservation. They try to take what they can, hold on to what they can, never spend any money, and it's hard to enjoy money that way. Mm-hmm. There's another money persona called the conservative. The conservative, they're always about, how do I accumulate money for the future so I can have a better retirement? They're always setting money aside. They're still not wanting to spend much, and they want to have, they want to be smart with their money, but they don't really get a chance to enjoy life along the way.
They're kind of just hoarding the money.
Yeah, so the miser hoards money, and the conservative's more likely to set money to invest it, but they don't. Both of them kind of play not to lose, where they don't really enjoy life along the way. They don't really use money for their own value today, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's 2 other money personas that kind of play a different game. There's one called the striver that plays a game called status, and they just always think they can work harder to make more money, but they burn themselves out, right? They don't save enough a lot of times. They're buying things too often. And then there's another one called the high roller. A high roller, they might be the life of the party. They might go rent a car and pretend it's theirs. They might, that's the high roller. They often lose money because they take shortcuts. So those are kind of the negative money personas. And when we understand, everybody looks at money a little bit differently based upon their upbringing, based upon their personality. Well, what we all have to understand is, what if we could just understand what money is and heal our relationship to it? And we just see it as like a byproduct of value and a way to store our energy and a way to engage other people's abilities to serve and create a better life. And that the more we can add value, the more money we're going to have. And the more intelligent we become with the money that we do have, the more we can hold on to. So that's just kind of something I thought would be helpful to say.
So you talk a lot about mindset, and actually in school we're learning about different mindsets. So how is mindset key to increasing wealth? Can you please explain to us?
Our mindset, I think of it like a frame. Like if you can only see, if it's closing in and you can just barely see anything, it's hard to see possibility, right? You're very careful and you're worried about, are you going to trip on something? When we can expand that view, there's a lot more possibility. We can see the beauty that's around us. We can avoid missteps, right? And so the way that a lot of mindsets work is when people have a belief in scarcity, they think that money is evidence of deception and coercion. They live by this mantra of fear, doubt, and worry. When people are in scarcity and they have that negative mindset, it's always about this, what I would call the consumer condition, where they look to take more than they give. And they think that they just think that there's only so much to go around. And that belief system limits their ability to create value. On the other hand, there's this producer paradigm where people look to add more value in the world than they take from it. It's a more expansive mindset of abundance that's led with innovation and ingenuity. Hey, if there's only so much oil, what are the other ways we can provide energy? If there's only so many animals, how do we, what happens through reproduction? If there's only, it's really about thinking of alternative ways.
Outside the box in a way, right?
Right. And so if our mindset is always, it can't, I don't have, it's not possible, that will fulfill that. We'll look for that evidence. If our mindset is like, how could I afford it? What would it take? How can I add more value? If I want that, what would I have to do to achieve that? See, it's a completely different frame of reference.
So basically, when you're always thinking negative, then negative things are always going to happen.
Yeah, like if you take someone in this world in your life and you go, I'm going to label them this way, that they're a bad person, then we just look for evidence of that. And we push them into that. And we say, we could create that story. It might not be true at all. And that's what happens with scarcity. People get caught up in this, I don't believe it's possible. It can't be done. I'm not lucky enough. You hear how defeating those statements are?
Yeah.
That mindset destroys possibility. Think of this. Wealth is built through the conversations we have. Wealth is built because we inspire someone. because we inspire action, because we ask good questions and we learn, because we uplift someone and we acknowledge them and we support them and we help them grow and we think of all the things that we could do for that person. That is a mindset of abundance. And that is the game changer of how we end up with more money.
So basically, it's like if someone's always saying, I'm going to fail my homework, I hate school, you know, I'm always going to get such a bad grade, then they're going to have a bad grade. It's not going to improve, right? If you just say, oh, I'm going to get an F on this test, I'm going to do like, you know what, I might not even try to practice because I'm going to, or study because I'm going to fail, then they end up getting that result because that's the way they thought.
That's so well said. It really is. I mean, words cast spells. Like if we, you know, my sons listen to certain rap, and some of these rappers talk about dying early, and guess what happens? They die early. So many of them that talk about dying early die early. I'm like, you know, when we're talking about that, we bring that about. And so some people will say talk is cheap. Cheap talk is cheap. Only if we're saying things that we don't commit to or that we don't mean, or if we lie. But the most powerful thing is our language is an access to wealth. It's an access to abundance. It's an access to uplift. There's so much there. Some people have a broke poverty mentality and they speak poverty into their world. Some people are abundant and giving and generous and with gratitude and inspiring, and they speak that in the world. So think about who you want to have the most time with. The person that uplifts you or the person that demeans you? The person that complains or the person that creates? You know, it's not that we're always perfect and living in abundance. Like we might have moments of emotion where we're angry, sad, frustrated. It's not that just because we think positive that everything positive is going to happen. It's just part of our attitude and our approach makes a huge difference. Yeah. And some people, like one of my early mentors told me a story. He's like, you know, early shoe salesman goes out and finds out that Native Americans don't wear shoes. Another one goes out to a different region, finds out those Native Americans don't wear shoes. They both come back. One goes, Native American, they don't wear shoes. And the other one's like, dude, none of these guys have shoes. We have so many people that we could sell shoes to. They've never had shoes, right? Like it's just a mindset. One of service and the other one of like, you know.
That's the way you think.
Yeah. There's so much out there on this. As a man thinketh, think and grow rich. I have money, I don't grow on trees, right? There's so many books that help us to understand like our language matters, our mindset matters, the conversations we have matter.
Yeah, I think that's like something that you don't get in schools at all.
Yeah.
Right, Zen?
Yes, they never teach us about this. And if they understood money a little more, then it would really help us. And I think that's what this episode's for. So now they can get this out to the kids that didn't learn this from school.
Especially like communication. They don't teach how to talk to people in school because you would think that people know how to talk to each other. But right in like hallways, people like, at least for me, because everyone has their phones. So a lot of people, they only stick to 2 or 3 people and they don't like to talk to many other people, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know that some schools are making it where people can have their phones now because they're buried in the phone versus like a real connection and conversation with someone that's right there.
So what is one thing you would wish that you knew or your kids would wish that they knew about money or business?
Like if you were to start again, what would you do differently this time?
I just would have stayed focused on what I knew and not get excited about a bunch of things that were a good story, but not real. You know, like there's just a lot of really cool stories on what you can do with your money that don't always pan out. And it's easy to get seduced and excited, like, oh yeah, I'm going to put this money. But like, here's the message: grow yourself and grow your money. If you grow your money, but you don't grow your understanding, that's risk. It's like, okay, I have this money, but I don't know why or how it works, or I don't know what to do with it, or I'm just going to hand it over to someone and hope for the best. And so many people kind of like don't take responsibility for their finances. If I went back to my 18-year-old self, I'd say, just invest in yourself. Just stabilize and keep your money safe so you could focus on what you do best. It's an investment to write a book. You don't have to be in a stock. You don't have to own real estate to be wealthy. You may do the things that matter to improve your life, not just chase a return. And I just think I got involved in far too many things because they were interesting, but they weren't the things that really made me feel fulfilled. Like, I'm okay not trying to own so much that it owns me. Like, there was a time I had too much real estate and it took up all of my free time. And I didn't have the ability to hang out with my kids or just enjoy a game on TV or go trick-or-treating because I've said yes to too many things. Say yes to your quality of life. Create parameters that you enjoy your life along the way. Find the career that you love, because then the win is the work, not just the payment for the work. And design your life in a way that you don't want to retire from it. Like, that's a lot of advice, but those are things I would shake in myself and said, please listen to this so you don't waste time and don't waste money on a bunch of things that you don't love.
So basically, don't spend tons of money on Robux and actually use that money to improve yourself and make yourself better.
There you go. There you go.
So do you think it's important for kids to think about making money? Because like Iman, I doubt anybody or any of you guys or even me barely think about making money. So do you think it's important? Or is that like an adult thing?
No, I think it's helpful to understand, like, what could you do to make money? I mean, I have a friend, Rich. He actually just called me while we were on this episode. And he helped all of his kids start a business when they were 14 years old. So that way they could learn about the basics of business. And some of them were making a lot of money before they ever graduated. I have a little nephew that's 10. And he's always thinking about ways to make money. He just went up the other day, set up a lemonade stand, made $80. He sells electrolyte popsicles at the softball games that his sister's in. He went and put signs up on his neighbor's doors saying, I clean up dog poop and this is my price. And, he just learned how to set goals and take initiative and learn how to approach people. And so I think all that's super helpful. But I think having a lot of fun and playing is critically important. That if you skip out on the fun of life because you're so worried about making money too young, find a little bit of balance there. Learn some basics about it. Learn to have those skill sets, because it's nice to have those skill sets before there's a lot of pressure. It's nice to make a few mistakes when there's not a lot at stake, right? You're like, okay, yeah, that wasn't a good idea. And like in business, I made some mistakes in my first business. I'm like, oh, that's a good lesson. I want to do this differently. Those kind of things are really, really helpful. So I wouldn't obsess about it, but I would at least have some time to learn about it, just like you're doing today.
So it's like, it's not about, trying to make as much money and putting your entire life towards that, but forgetting about everything else. But it's more, you have to focus on having fun on the way.
Yeah.
Right? It's like so you're basically saying that lemonade stands aren't like outdated. That it's still fine, to go outside and have some fun with the lemonade.
He didn't even ask his parents. He just went and set it up on his own, came back with $83.
So you're allowed to have fun while making money.
If I see a lemonade stand and I have any cash on me, I stop and I'm not even drink the lemonade. I'm just encouraging kids to try. Just on the corner here, there's a little girl making bracelets. So I got one for my wife for Mother's Day. I was like, here we go. Like, it's just, I want to support and encourage, just learn those lessons. Just do something so you can test it out. Because sometimes it's uncomfortable and it takes you have to have the courage to do it. I mean, I think of how valuable it was to create my little business. I think I have, let me see, do I have it here? I have like a little book I might have lent it out, but it's like my little, air fresheners I created at 16 years old and wrote little income statements and balance sheets. I learned the basic fundamentals of business early on when there was only $700 at stake versus 7 million, it's super helpful. Yeah.
So if you were going to start from, for someone that's starting from zero and they're trying to get to that point, what advice would you have for them to start doing something today?
Look, when you're young, you can get so many people that are already successful to support you. They love curious people. They love to pay it forward. When I was a teenager, I was asking really successful people, like, what would you do if you were me? And, what do you recommend? And where should I invest? And how does money, I just got really people that were willing to pour into me because they liked that I was young and asked the questions. So I had a little red memo pad and I'd just bring everywhere and I would ask questions and I would write down the answers. And I just learned so much from doing that. So stay curious, ask questions. Good questions lead to really good answers, especially considering a lot of people that have already been really successful love it when really young people ask them questions. It's like something they truly enjoy being part of and answering.
Yeah, because I think nowadays a lot of people, they're kind of intimidated, right? Like if we probably saw you, we'd be like, oh, you know what? Well, we'll stay over here, because people think that, you know what, that now that you've got people that with that money, they've gotten to that status, and a lot of people, they even have in that mindset that I can never be like that, right?
Yeah, because they don't.
Well, how do we break that mindset?
They don't see the journey. I mean, I started washing cars. That was my start. And a lot of people seem more successful than they are. So we always romanticize and fantasize that people have more than they do. I had someone once come after I spoke, like, are you a billionaire? I'm like, I'm far from a billionaire, but just because I was eloquent and had written a book, they put me on that kind of pedestal or that status. And the thing is, if you think of it instead of like, oh, I'm burdening this person, and instead you think like, hey, we all want to see the next generation improve, grow, do better. We want to see that what we did mattered. And so if we can help someone young with the things that we learned, that's like very fulfilling. That's very exciting. So just think of it that way. I know it takes courage, but you'll build up that courage every time you ask a question, every time you meet someone. It's so helpful.
Wow, you are so empowering.
So empowering. Thank you so much for this powerful episode. We are so thankful for your time and wisdom today. Let's recap Mr. Gunderson's key points.
Money is confusing for a lot of people. Money is a man-made tool that we can be more efficient or exchange with each other. Wealth is built by unequal change. Mr. Gunderson taught us that money is how we impact more people. The more value you add, the money follows the value.
And your mindset matters.
If you expand your view, you can see the beauty around us. When you live in fear, doubt, and worry, you can get caught up in negativity, and it can be defeating. It destroys possibility and stop
that broke poverty mentality. We also love gratitude, right?
Very.
Yes.
Much.
Nice. Love it. Good work. Good work. Nice job.
Ask good questions. Help someone help people grow. That is a mindset of abundance. And that is the game changer in how we see the value of wealth be uplifting and provide value.
And also, our language matters. The mindset matter. Grow yourself. Then grow your money. Invest in yourself. Find a career you love. And also have courage to step out of your comfort zone to build your richest life today.
Anyone can start a business. We started a podcast, had a book deal, and we just paid to speak at a huge stage. We proved value in making money.
And remember to have fun along the way, because we can definitely tell you we had a lot of fun.
Yes, this has been a journey.
Good work.
So thank you everyone for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Zain Sari.
I'm Abdullah.
And I'm Imad.
Follow my family and I on social media, Holistic Mom D, and look out for my mom's book that came out, Adam's Healing Adventures, Fake Food versus Real Food, Food Label Detectives. And stay tuned for our book, The Teen Health Revolution, releasing 2025. Kids need to learn from other kids. Please download our podcast and iTunes and leave a review so other kids and families can benefit. We need to create a healthy future for all of us and the planet. Join us next week for another episode of the Holistic Kid Show, where kids are empowering kids.
Thank you, everyone.